When you retire, you may get a chance to go to football heaven. This is football heaven.
Hey guys, welcome to The Mission. This is Football Heaven. I'm your host, Jameer Howerton, and it's been a great couple of weeks catching up with this year's 2021 finalist class, getting the chance to talk with them and getting to know them better. And to wrap up our interviews, I am so honored to be joined by Jacksonville Jaguars legend. His teammates said that if you were to make a mold of an offensive tackle, it would be him. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tony Boselli. Tony, welcome to The Mission, sir.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be with you.
You know, this is the 15th year that you're eligible for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but your 5th year as a finalist. I have to ask you, when you get that phone call from Mr. Baker, you know, what's that like? What's that energy like inside of you?
Well, it's interesting because the phone call when you find out you're a finalist is great. The phone call from Mr. Baker when he's called me to tell me I did make the Hall of Fame, not so good. So it depends what phone call he's giving you. So but it's an honor. You know, every time David Baker calls, and lets me know that I'm a finalist, and this is the 5th year in a row, as you said, it's a little bit surreal because you realize that while you're not in the Hall of Fame, and that's the next step, and we'll find out when it's time whether who of the 5 of us will make it. It's still an honor. I mean, you look at the names on the list; they're all great players, and and all of us played the game not for this reason, but because we loved it and we're competitors. But when you are competitive and you love something like football, you want to be your best, and to be mentioned with other greats is quite an honor.
Hey, Tony, I got to give a big shout out to JacksonvilleJaguars.com. They did a phenomenal job of the outpour of support and the testimonials. I just want to read a few. Jimmy Smith says, when you talk about leadership, Tony Boselli exemplifies that. Mark Bunnell, your former quarterback, said he's a pro's pro. He walks the walk. He talks the talk. That guy on the field is that same guy off the field. One of your other teammates said that if you poured the mold of an offensive tackle, there he is, Tony Boselli. Hands down, the best offensive tackle in the game. One guy compared you to Hall of Famer Anthony Munoz, but before I get your reflections on everybody, I got a chance to work with Willie Mack when he was at the Cleveland Browns. And he talked about 1990, the battles that you and him had at USC. Out of all your teammates, it was phenomenal here, but I was like, man, I can't wait to ask Tony about those battles. But before we talk about Willie Mack, what does this say about the former Jaguars and their outpour of support to you?
Well, I mean, it's huge. I mean, when your teammates and your peers talk to you about you like that, it's humbling because those guys, you talk about Jimmy Smith, one of the greatest, in my opinion, does not get the due he deserves as one of the great receivers of the era we played in. Mark Bunnell, he was the quarterback. He's one of my best friends. You go down the list of, when guys talk about you that way, you appreciate it because, you think about the game of football. I love it, but it's the ultimate team sport. And so when you can have an impact on your teammates and when your teammates say that kind of stuff, that's what it's all about. It's about the relationships you build. It's about the memories that you create, and it's about going out and winning football games with the when on offense the other 10 guys around me. So it's quite humbling. It's pretty cool.
Were you surprised to see Willie Mack up there, giving you that huge shout out, where not saying where it all started, but where you made the transition from high school ball into professional ball, if you will, collegiate, but you're playing at a level. You're playing at USC. I don't care what anybody says. It's pro ball. It's preparing you for the next level. So steel sharpens steel, iron sharpens iron. He said that the coaches wouldn't allow him to go against anybody else but you.
Yeah, Willie and I mean, we were freshmen together. We got recruited together. And I'll be honest with you, he's probably, might have been the best pass rusher on our team as a true freshman. And he played. He was such a great player, amazing pro. Go look what he did with the Patriots. I mean, we had battles in the NFL as well. But I'll remember as a freshman, you show up. He was, I wasn't a huge recruit. He was like the man. And I'd never played against anybody like him in high school. I was like, man, who's this dude? And I'm competitive. He's competitive. And I refused to back down to him, and he refused to back down to me. And so we would battle, and we'd go at it. Sometimes it ended in some fights, but on the field. But here's the thing: we respected each other. I respect Willie McGinnis to the utmost. He was a great teammate. He's a great player, in my opinion. And I'll tell you what, he made me better. You talk about, it wasn't the beginning. I obviously had great coaches and great individuals around me growing up, starting with my parents. I was so fortunate with the coaches who influenced my life, my high school coach, Sam Pagano. But I'll tell you this, when I got to college, Willie McGinnis was a big part of my development as a player because he challenged me. I knew that if I could go block him during practice, I felt pretty good going into the game, whoever I was going to play. So I have fond memories. Willie's still a friend, and I can't say enough good things about him. And if you ever, I often wonder why he's not, doesn't get more due as far as being a finalist for the Hall of Fame. If you go look at those defenses for the Patriots, he was one of the key parts of it. And in the playoff runs, Super Bowls, he was amazing, and he's a great player.
It was a great segue, which you just said earlier about thanking certain people. And that's what I really want to go to. When you look back over the course of your career, Tony, who are some of the people, key people that you really want to pay homage to? When you're at this level, in the peak of your career, and you're getting phone calls from David Baker, and you're a 5-time finalist, and it's kind of like that pre-speech before, eventually that speech is going to inevitably come. But who are some of the people that you would really like to thank?
Yeah, that's my whole story is not just, was it hard work? Yes. I mean, I was gifted by God I didn't make myself 6'7" and be able to have good feet or any of that. I mean, those were just gifts. But as I think about how I got to where I'm at, it's all about the people around me. There's no chance I'm here without, my parents, first of all, the work ethic that, my dad, watching him work and what was expected in our household, the support from my mom, my step-parents as well. They were amazing going to all the games. But then I think back, just growing up, Little League Baseball, the coaches that would, taught me how to play sports. And, and then I'll tell you, one of the biggest was in high school. I was so fortunate. I went to Fairview High School in Boulder, Colorado, and Sam Pagano, who's in the Colorado Hall of Fame, Sports Hall of Fame as a high school coach. His son, Chuck Pagano, defensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears, who just retired. He was so impactful in my life. He taught me about discipline. He taught me how to play the game. He also made me an offensive lineman. I showed up in high school. I wanted to play quarterback, like every other kid. I no lie, I showed up. I'm the quarterback. And first day, we ain't got out of stretch yet. And he came over to me and he said, hey, I'm going to move you to tight end. I don't think he had the heart to move me all the way to offensive line right away. He wanted me to at least think I could touch the ball still. And I said, okay. I played tight end. And then next year he says, you're going to be an offensive lineman. And I remember thinking, I'm like, I had so much respect for him. I did it. And I look back now, if he wouldn't have said, hey, this is who this kid is, and he can be good, I'd never be here. I was never going to be an NFL quarterback. And there's no chance. And so I just think of Sam Pagano and what he did in my life. And then getting to college, I had great offensive line coaches. I was so fortunate at USC because you never know what you're going to get. John Matsko, who's now the offensive line coach at the Washington football team, I apologize, he taught me how to pass block. I never pass blocked one day in my life. In high school, we ran it every time. And he taught me how to play this position. He was so tough on me and demanding. I think about Mike Berry after Coach Matsko went to the NFL. Mike Berry came and took my game to another level. He leaned on me and forced me to say, "Hey, it's not good enough just to be good. You have to. Your goal should be great." Head coach, it was so. John Robinson, our head coach at USC, was an amazing person. He challenged me. I keep on going. The coaches in my life were so impactful. And And I got to the NFL, and I was fortunate again, playing for, Tom Coughlin wasn't always the most fun guy to play for, but he was disciplined, and and I had an offensive line coach in Mike Mazer, who's passed away in the last couple of years, unfortunately, who really took the foundation that was laid by great coaches before, and took it and helped me maintain it and continue to grow. So I can't think enough. And then if I don't say this last person, I'll be in big trouble. Is my wife. We've been married 25 years, Angie, and we met in college, and we dated in college, and her support, because being a professional athlete, you got to be selfish a little bit, because you have to take care of your body. It's about you, and especially during the season. And I was a selfish dude when it came to football. That was really important. I tried to keep faith, family, and football in balance, but it was hard because you want to be so good. And without her support and her love and her just standing by my side and being there and making sure I was able to do it, no chance I have the success that I ended up having.
That's much love, Tony. Tony, I know you're on a run, but I got to have some fun here. I got a couple of pictures I want to show you, and I want to get your reflections on this, because I look at this picture right here.
Yeah, I'm too high there, man.
And I'm like, man. And that's against them boys. So tell me about this. What's going on here, Tony?
Yeah, I'm trying to reach block. We have a double team. And actually, Greg Ellis was the defensive lineman. I'm working up to the linebacker level. And thankfully, I'm big because I'm way too dang high. The linebackers are underneath me. But I just kind of engulfed them. And then there's that guy behind me, Fred Taylor. He's so dang good. As long as I just got in the way, he was going to make something happen. So any offensive line coach would look at that and say, yeah, you're blocking him. And, yeah, he's not making the tackle. But get your butt lower. Look how high you are.
Man, this right here, you talking about battling.
Yeah.
I know you – is it safe to say that going against Willie Mack at least got you ready for this?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I'll tell you, it was interesting. So Bruce Smith, I mean, everyone knows Bruce. I mean, Hall of Famer.
Right.
Defensive player of the year in the NFL. I mean, one of the all-time greats. Like if you were picking defensive linemen, I mean, Reggie White, Bruce Smith, I mean, you don't have to go much further. And on my second year, we played them in the playoffs. And I played against good players, obviously, in my first 2 years, but none like Bruce. And it was probably one of the more nervous times I've ever been to play a football game. But I remember getting out there, and it was a pretty defining moment for my career from the standpoint. When I went out and played him, I blocked him, and not very many people have blocked him that year. Obviously, he was Defensive Player of the Year. It told me, like, you know what? I can play with anybody. And so, you bring Willie McGinnis. That was kind of when I was a freshman, and I was blocking him, and I would battle. It gives you confidence. And so when you play against great players and you have the ability to go out there and compete with them, and the competition is Bruce was unbelievable because he's an amazing player. But it does help. You say, all right, bring on the next one, because if, you're blocking the best, you should be able to go out and do it. So those are great battles. One of my favorite games ever was that 1996 playoff game against Buffalo Bills and Bruce Smith. They had never lost a playoff game. They've only lost one playoff game in the history of the Bills at home.
Wow.
And that was to our group. That was our team. We went in there and beat them. It was pretty cool, to say the least.
And lastly, you made it, man. You made it.
Yeah.
Tony, you got the Boselli. What's it? The McBoselli?
It was just the Boselli burger. I remember when McDonald's here regionally said, "Hey, we want to make a burger after you." I said, "Okay," and I said, "Man, that's pretty cool," because my dad. I don't know if you know this. My dad actually has been in McDonald's franchise, owned McDonald's for 46 years. So he's been in McDonald's forever, and he had nothing to do with it. And so I remember calling him and say, "Hey, Dad, guess what? In the North Florida region, they're gonna make a Boselli burger." He's like, "You gotta be kidding me." It must have not been very popular though, because it only made it 1 year. But it was pretty cool.
Wow, man. I gotta ask you. You talked about Fred Taylor, but who are some of the guys that, when you look back over the course of your career and be like, you know what? I wouldn't mind blocking for this running back.
Oh, gosh. That's a great question, because obviously I love playing Fred, but you know, blocking for Barry Sanders would have been amazing. I mean, now you really didn't know where he was going to go because he'd just go wherever the heck he wanted. Just stay. He was a little bit like Fred. Just get on your guy and stay on him. That'd be great. I mean, I was a big fan, even though I wasn't a Cowboy fan. I used to love those, early '90s teams when, with that big offensive line and Emmitt Smith. I still loved how they played. They were physical, and Emmitt was such a physical back. That would have been a lot of fun. And then as a kid, my favorite was Earl Campbell. I mean, to be able to go block for Earl Campbell, man, that would have been pretty dang cool.
I know you talked about Bruce Smith being one of your toughest opponents. Anybody else that you knew, like, oh, God, here we go. I got to circle this on the schedule. I'm facing this guy here today.
Yeah, so, as I look at, some of the other great guys I got to play against, I mean, I got to play against the late Derek Thomas, and he was a, different player than Bruce. Bruce could, power and everything else, and Derek was a speed guy. One of the toughest games ever played was against the Hall of Famer John Randall up in Minnesota. We played on a Sunday night. That was brutal. They were 15-1, and it wasn't one of my favorite nights of football to that much. Those are Hall of Famers, and it was a great challenge. And then, I think about a guy like, Willie Mack McGinnis was one of the toughest guys I blocked when he played for the Patriots. Another guy who's not in the Hall of Fame but great player is a guy named Michael McCrary. Played for the Baltimore Ravens on that historic Baltimore defense they had in 2000. Right. I mean, a great physical player. And so, the reality is, you talk about the great ones like the Bruce Smith and Derek Thomas and the John Randalls, and you got to be ready to play those guys, obviously. But it's the NFL. There's no bad players. There's no week off. It's not like in college where a couple weekends the guy can't beat you as long as you just don't trip. That's not the case in the NFL, man. These guys, I don't care whether I have the utmost respect for every guy who steps on an NFL field. And that was one of the things I tried to do as a player, too. I respected that guy. That right defensive end, I don't care if he was a first-year player who I didn't even know his name. That guy, he deserved to be in the NFL, and he deserved my respect, and I better be prepared to play for it all the way up to the guys like Bruce Smith.
Right on. And lastly, Tony, you're still a part of the game. I heard you last week on Westwood One Radio. Talk about that and how the joy you get from still being in and around the game, calling the games, and still studying.
Yeah, I love football, man. I mean, I love it. My two boys played. I got to coach high school football for a while, so I was involved with that. I call games in Westwood One. I call the games for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I like to watch film to prepare. I like being in the stadium. It's funny, not this year because of COVID, we're not able to go on the field pregame to talk to the players. But previous to this year, I'd always go down pregame. And I'll be honest with you, every time I walk out, I get that like a little bit of like looking back, saying, "Man, I wish I could do this again." Because like the thought of walking on the field and being out there and part of something that matters, that's the great thing. Now you never can replace it because what I do. Calling the game doesn't really matter. There's no winning or losing. I just call the game and talk about it. But that feeling of walking on the football field, knowing that what you did mattered and it was good, you were either going to win or lose. Like there was a consequence. Man, I miss that because that competitive nature is just and to do that is amazing. So I enjoy being around the game, enjoy walking on the field and being around the guys. And I just respect the guys who play this game. The rules change, the game changes, and everything else, generation to generation. But the essence of the game will never change. And I just respect guys who go out there and play the game.
And with that being said, because I had a chance to ask all of this year's finalists this question, do you feel like you left everything out there on the field?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the way my career ended, you always have regrets and think maybe if I'd have rehabbed a little better or done this because I got hurt and my shoulder never came back. And the last game I walked off the field was in Seattle. And I didn't know my career was over. I thought I was going to have shoulder surgery and it'd get fixed and I'd be back the next year. And I never got to play again, never got to step on the field again. And so because of that, you always look back and say, man, did I appreciate it enough? Did I enjoy it enough? And so people say, you have regrets? I said, I think the only regret I have is I didn't enjoy it enough. And I loved it, but I didn't enjoy it and appreciate it as much as I wish I would have. because I think human nature sometimes is you take it for granted because you get to go do it. And because my career ended earlier than I wanted it to, and kind of suddenly, that's my only regret, really, about my career.
Well, Tony, we wish you nothing but the best of luck here on the mission, and thank you for giving us your time. And oh yeah, before I let you go, who do you like this weekend?
Woo! I'm calling the Chiefs-Bills game. Tell me if Patrick Mahomes is playing or not, then I'll tell you what I think, because that's when here's the thing. I don't know who's going to win. Usually I got a good feeling like who's going to win. Like if Patrick Mahomes doesn't play, I think the Bills are a big favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But if he plays, it's a coin flip. Up in Tampa, man, I've learned a long time ago, don't bet against Tom Brady. That's not a good thing to do, but Aaron Rodgers is playing as well as anybody. He's going to be the MVP of the NFL. They're in Lambeau. It's going to be cold, snowy. So I don't know. I mean, here's the great thing. We're in an amazing Super Bowl. It's going to I don't care who makes it. It's going to be a great Super Bowl.
Well, there it is. Tony Boselli, thank you so much for joining us right here on The Mission.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.